Okay, so comments, follow the schedule in WebAssign. Get the WebAssigns done one at a time, and answer the question checks you should be turning in integument and skeleton and everything else. So if you haven't done all of the WebAssigns and all of the question checks, make sure you get those done. Okay, so we're recording again. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. So we covered this. What do bones need for growth and maintenance? Calcium, phosphate, vitamins, and hormones. Growth hormone is necessary. Thyroid hormones, sex hormones like testosterone and estrogen. So these hormones are involved in regulating the calcium phosphate deposition into the bone, the destroying bone to take calcium out of the bone, because then we have these processes, remodeling and mineral turnover, allows the proper amount of calcium in the blood, which is essential for muscle and bone growth and bone function. And so, as I said, bones will be remodeled based upon age, hormone levels, weight, activity, exercise, and so on. If you don't use your bone, like me, you're old, your bones will get weaker. So that's why one reason exercise is so important, to keep your bones in good shape. Homeostasis. The whole bone system serves as a reservoir or depot for calcium. These hormones release bone calcium, parathyroid hormone and calcitrol. Calcitonin stores bone calcium. So the interaction of bone tissue with these hormones keeps the levels of calcium in the blood and in the tissues very constant. We have a host of homeostasis sets a basic level for various components, such as calcium and phosphate, because those are absolutely essential to keep the right amount of calcium in the blood and tissues. Injury and repair. Okay. We all know bones can heal. Sometimes, depending upon the severity of a break, the location, you may have considerable scarring and toughness of the bone. And so, depending upon the size of the break, the location, the weight of the person, hormone levels, bones can be repaired, and the blood waste or the loss of blood will be taken care of. We'll get into more of that when we talk about the process of inflammation and the formation of tissue to allow an injury to be fixed. Okay, so I won't ask any questions on this, but we all know that bone injury can be repaired. Okay, so just make note of this process. We know that bones can be repaired, and osteocytes and osteoblasts and osteoclasts are involved in that process. If you have too little calcium, we all are losing it. Spongy bone is the most affected. And so osteopenia is the lower levels of calcium. Bone markings. The bones have all types of structures on them for muscle attachment through tendons and so on. So make sure you know these bone markings: tuberosity, condyle, trochlea, facet, fossa, foramen, and sinus. So take a good look at this. Good look at this table and see that all of these markings are defined. So in WebAssign, you'll have to identify various markings and parts of the bone. So all these markings, like a tubercle, a tuberosity, a fossa is a flat surface, a crest, a spine, a line, a bone, hole. So all of these special structures that are formed in bone, so to allow attachment for tendons and ligaments, because at the joints will be held together. So we have two skeletons: the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. So the central skeleton is the axial skeleton, the external skeleton, the limbs, and away from the spine and the skull. So that's the appendicular skeleton. So you should know all these bones. So make sure you look at that. So the front, and here's the rear view. Here's an overview of the skeleton. Know all of these terms in the appendicular skeleton and terms in the axial skeleton. So the central skeleton is the axial. The external or peripheral skeleton is the appendicular skeleton. So make sure you learn all of these terms, and these terms will be tested in WebAssign, as you well know. Bones of the cranium. Make sure you know all of these bones. So look at this. There'll be questions about the ethmoid, the parietal, and so on. So the flat bones of the skull, the bones of the face, and so on, of the eye cavity. You should know all of these bone names. The face has the maxillary bones, the zygomatic bones, and the mandible. So here's the mandible right here, and the maxillary bone, and the ethmoid bone, and the sphenoid bone, and the zygomatic bone. They're going to form the eye cavity and the bones of the cell. There are little canals or holes in the bone for blood vessels to go through and nerves to go through. The bones of the face: the palatine bone, the vomer, nasal bones, the lacrimal bones, the anterior nasal conchae. So if we go back to the skeleton, here's the lacrimal bone, here's the ethmoid bone, here's the maxillary. These are the bones that form the eye cavity, and also the bones that form the rest of the bones of the face. So here's another view of the skull. You should know all of the bones of the face and the bones of the skull, and the sutures where the bones join together. So there's two parietal bones, and where they join together is called the sagittal suture. So any place bones fuse, that's called a suture. Here's the external view of the, the lower internal view of the skull. Know those bones, and we'll go ahead and stop there and keep going after we shut off the stop presenting, stop recording, stop recording.